This is Arnish Point on the Isle of Lewis. It's been sleeting pretty heavily, but it's stopped now. A lot of people believe that there's no life after death. That when you die, you just kind of drift off into nothingness. Like going to sleep. You know, when you go to sleep, usually you're just not aware of your own existence. That's what it'll be like. And you can see how that would comfort them. When Christians and the Bible argue that there's a judgment to come. And if there is a judgment to come, then atheists obviously are in trouble. Those who reject God clearly are in trouble. So, rather than everlasting burnings, drifting off into nothingness is preferable. Yeah, I can follow that. I can see that. That would make sense. That would add up. But here's the thing. Who made us? Because we didn't make ourselves, even though evolution argues that we did. Because common sense tells you very clearly that creatures cannot make themselves. It's simply not possible. Not possible. Imagine there would have to be intelligence on a cellular basis, on an atomic basis. Tiny, tiny little brains, millions of them, beavering away. It's been discovered that inside every cell there's massive complexity, far more complex than any city. Little things, little machines zooming about and everything. Now, are you going to try and argue that each one of these little things, little objects that are zooming about, they've got little brains and they're little creatures and they're working away with intelligence? I mean, they are beavering away. There are little machines and so on beavering away, but clearly they don't have intelligence. They don't have reason. They're not independent. Not at all. So who did make us then? Is that a supreme being rather than this multitude of tiny little ones? Now, it's difficult for people to accept this. For some people, for a lot of human beings, it's difficult to accept that there is a supreme being, that there is a God that made us. And the scripture itself gives us an example of what these people say, the kind of things that they say. For instance, where is the promise of his coming? For all things have remained the same from the beginning. So that verse, if I've quoted it correctly from memory, that verse, which is more or less right. That's That is correct enough. That verse makes it plain that human beings have no true concept of time. They use time, their erroneous understanding of time. You know how it feels like, we have no patience, so, all these hundreds of years, thousands of years. Well, how can God possibly wait and not reveal himself and be so patient as to just hang around and wait for all these things to just unfold and come to pass without becoming impatient and just going, I can't be bothered with this, I'm just going to fold it all up or whatever, How can God be so patient like that? Well, the Bible does tell us that with the Lord, 1,000 years is as one day, and one day as 1,000 years. So if we look at it like that and try to get some kind of understanding of time and the reality of what time is, because when you think about it, time is just a concept, isn't it? I mean, we have the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. Everything is falling apart, everything is wearing out, decomposing. Things decompose, things fall apart, things wear out. So that's what time is really. Penny, come here! Come on! Time is the second law of thermodynamics. Time is things falling apart, collapsing, disintegrating, just falling apart at the seams. So just a concept. When we leave this world, we won't experience time anymore. We won't experience entropy. We won't experience decay, because a soul cannot die, and everything is spiritual. It's the spiritual world. Everything lasts forever. Nothing wears out. Nothing crumbles away. A soul is indestructible. The reason I can say that with confidence, quite apart from the scriptures making it clear, is that when I was still a teenager, I was just coming up to 18, I had a bad accident on a motorbike. I crashed a motorbike at 90 miles an hour into the side of a car. And what I experienced was pain. My entire body racked in pain. And then suddenly, I was no longer in my body. That's what I experienced, that I was no longer in my body. And I still had my wits about me. I was still perfectly conscious, aware of everything that was happening. I knew I had just crashed the bike, and I fervently believed that I had died. And I said to myself, so this is what it's like to be dead. And it didn't concern me in the least. I wasn't in the least bit bothered by that. I had no desire to return to the world which I thought I had left, and possibly I had. Perhaps. Was I dead? That's the question. What I experienced was pure brilliant white. Everything was white. I saw no objects or people. I was just like a spirit floating in a universe of whiteness. And I had no body. I was just consciousness, perfect pure consciousness and completely content. Completely content. And after a time, I simply woke up in hospital and wondered what it meant. And I had no understanding of it, so I just dropped it. I left it. I never thought about it again till now. I'm in my 50s now. Late 50s, no less. And it's only now that I think about it and now that I get something from it. And what I get from it is the emphasizing of that, of the fact that things will be so very different when we leave this body, so very different. Our thoughts, our whole attitude, our entire attitude will be so completely different. The Bible tells us that when we die, desire will fail. That's in Ecclesiastes 12. Desire will fail. My desire, I experienced my desire having completely failed then. I didn't have the desires that I had. I was just completely at ease with everything. I'd never felt such peace, at ease, completely content. But then, of course, when I awoke in hospital, everything was back to the way it was again. So I believe that when we die and we leave the corrupt, weak, sinful bodies behind, because the soul is eternal and indestructible and not capable of death, everything will be so completely different. And then, of course, there is the judgment that we have to deal with. So let's seek wisdom. That's what to do. Seek wisdom.